So let's do a simple problem here. We're going to write a function search list that searches a list of tuple pairs and returns the value associated with the first element of that pair. You might want to try this yourself first, and you can pause the video here and come back later and try it. But what I want to do is I want to work through this function so you get a sense for how we write functions and how we iterate and all that kind of stuff, putting it all together, so to speak. So what do we do here? So if you want to pause and come back. Okay. So I'm assuming you're back. So here, let's say we've got a list of prices that are like this. We have a list of prices. Each price is a tuple with the ticker and the actual price in it. And then we've got a ticker that we are searching for. So we're going to search for IONS, for example. And we want to call our search list function that searches for the price ticker combination. So what it's going to do is it's going to iterate through our list and find the tuple that matches the first item of the tuple that matches ticker, and once it finds that, it's going to return the price that is associated with the ticker. So for Apple, it'll return 96.43, or maybe the entire tuple. It's up to us, whatever we want to do. So let's see how that will work. So first thing, I've already written the list of tuple value stuff over there. So we already have our function declaration. So here we've got the keyword def that says it's a function definition that follows. We have the name of the function, search list, and we have the two arguments, a list of tuples and a value, right? So that's what we want to work with. So list of tuples is our first argument, and value is what we're searching for. And so you want to search for this stuff here. We could say for thing, or let's use a nicer word, for element in list of tuples. And notice I can always press the tab key. I mean, you don't notice that, you can't see it, but if I press the tab key, it tries to fill up whatever I've done over there. For element in list of tuples, and I want to compare whether the first item in element matches the value, right? So if element 0 equals value, and if it does, I want to return the value, right? So I can say return value. Okay, so that's the first thing I can do. So this is actually going to give me the value for any element that is there. So let's test this out. Okay, so if I do this and I do this, it returns value. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be returning value. I should be returning, see, this is how we all make mistakes when we write programs. I should be returning element 1, because value is a ticker, right? So that we'll keep that in so that you know that we can all make mistakes. So I do this and I get 39.28, which is the value associated with ions in my tuple over there. So that's the first step. But of course, what happens now if I, instead of ions, I'd look for, say, Google? I get none back. The reason I get none back is because my function hasn't returned anything. So what I would like to do instead is return, say, 0, right? It depends on what I want. Maybe I'm happy with none. But let's say I want to return 0. So what I can do here is I could use the else part of for and say else return 0, right? So if I do else return 0, and now I search for Google, I get 0, right? Notice a couple of things here. One is that I don't need to use the break anymore. I don't need the break because when I return element 1, it's going to end my function immediately. So one of the things about functions is that the moment a function hits a return statement, the function ends. So if the function ends, it's not going to look at anything else. And we can check that out. So if I look here and I print the value of element, print element to see which ones we are considering, right? And if I search for Google, I'm searching through the entire list. I get an element for AAPL, I get ions, I get GS. Okay. However, if I search for AAPL, then I only look at AAPL because the return is going to end that. And what this also means is that I don't really need an else either, because in this case, what's going to happen is that since the function will end the moment I find my element and it hits a return statement, the only way I'm going to get to anything beyond the for is if I don't find the element. So I don't need an else. I can just take this and do a return 0 outside the for, right? Not inside the for. Big difference, right? If I do it inside the for, what will happen? Let's check that. Okay, so if I do it inside the for, and now if I search for AAPL, that works fine. But if I do it here and I search for ions, okay, what's going to happen now? Let's see. I don't get the value. The reason I don't get the value is because my return is here, and this is really important because indenting is crucial in Python. When the return is here, the return is inside the for. So what it's going to do is it's going to print AAPL 96.43. That's what this is going to do. It's going to check whether AAPL equals IONS. It doesn't. So that fails. So then it returns 0 and the program ends, right? The function ends. So I don't want that. What I want is this over here after the for. So now if I do this, I look for ions, we get ions. And if I do Goog, then I get all three. So what I want to do now, of course, is to remove the print from here because I don't want my function. And as a general rule, you don't want your function to do any printing. The reason is that a function is like an assistant, right? You don't want the assistant to do anything important. You want to have control over how your program interacts with the outside world. So if a function is printing something, then it's interacting with the outside world, and you have no control over it, which is not a good thing, right? So you want your functions to generally return stuff, but not print or do anything that interacts with the outside world. Not get inputs, not print, unless they're designed for printing or getting input, which is a different story. Like a function that does a formatted print or something, that's different. But in general, you want to avoid that. So try not to put print statements inside a function, except when you're testing, of course. So we do this, and for Goog, we get a 0 there, right? So that's the idea here.